Hey everybody, this is Anomaly with Dan and Ron. We have a very special episode for you today. We have a lot of the cast and crew and just everybody that was involved with the seminal 1980 video spoken word opera Perfect Lives. It's there's 7 people on with us today, and I guess if everybody can just kind of introduce themselves.
We should figure out the order because everybody.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I guess we'll start with Mimi. We have Mimi Johnson on.
Hi, I'm Mimi Johnson. I was Bob's wife and producer um, throughout his later years.
And John. We have John Sanborn on.
Hey, I'm John Sanborn. I got involved in Perfect Lives when it was going from live performance headed to television. And I ended up working with all these wonderful people in developing the live performance and then eventually directing the work for television.
And we have Barbara Mayfield.
Hello, I was the tour manager once it was ready to go on the road. And but the first time I participated or I visited the editing studio and saw Dean and John doing their wonderful work. And it was just fantastic, you know, going and see these effects that you've never seen before changing.
Rotating cubes.
Yeah, I remember the cube.
Very
up
good.
and down.
And phoning in from outer space, we have Paul Shorr.
I joined the band in 1982. No, fall of 1981. First as a roadie to bring the gear to the pension building.
Oh,
Hold
God.
on. 1 second.
In Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And then from there, started mixing the monitors in Chicago and in Germany and in London. And I guess London was probably the last large-scale live performance of Perfect Lives. And then I did a lot of the technical recording for the actual video opera. And
we have David Van Thieghem.
Hi, I I think I remember doing something first at the kitchen, and I was that 78 or 79. I think that was the first time I did it with Jill Croson, and then I continued to do the video, and I played. Was I the captain of the football team?
Yes, you were.
Yes.
Yes.
How I was cast as that, I don't know, but anyway.
You look good on a horse.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, for only one reason, David. You were good looking.
Thanks. It's a bit of a blur, but I do remember certain moments along the way, and doing some of the audio recording. I know actually my dedication to it. I was online to see The Empire Strikes Back at the Astor Plaza, and I went across the street to get a couple of beers, and as I was coming back to the line, a little three-wheeled mail vehicle from Hunter College hit me, and I spun around and the beer went into the street, and I thought maybe I broke my arm, but I decided to go see the movie anyway. And then I went to the hospital, and then I went to recording session for this after that with the arm. It wasn't broken, but anyway. So
fortunately, the session, you only had to do like one hit every measure on overdubs.
Really?
So you could do, yeah. Was that the one at Electric Lady?
I think it was Right Track, the original Right Track.
Oh.
Where we did some Flying Hearts things.
But I think before that, the very first sessions were at Electric Lady Studios.
Mhm.
Sort of some. It was the. I'm Peter Gordon, and
Oh,
I.
yeah, we have Peter Gordon. Yeah, I just I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay.
If
Sorry.
you only knew it was remembering something.
Yeah. Anyways, I produced the electronic tracks and with Blue, orchestrated them with Blue, and I mixed the show live and did live processing for the live performances. So the original recordings, I believe, this was at Right Tracks. At Electric Lady Studio to try to get a really good drum sound. Now, the way we would normally do this now would be to set up a click track, and which would be generated, very easily generated using MIDI. For Perfect Lives, Bob recorded a metronome on the Revox, and then brought the 7-inch tape of the metronome recorded at 7.5 IPS and brought this to the studio, which we then transferred to 24-track tape, all paying top dollar. And then this became the click track. After recording, basically we recorded just like bass drum and snare, maybe some tom fills. Now one could do it, you would do that with loops. But we recorded, I think you'll record, David, 30-minute, at this point it was still in the 30-minute song segment. So 30 minutes of kick on the beat.
Mhm.
And then you would do there's a whole metrical thing as well, which was happening numerically, each one of the songs being in a different meter, usually both asymmetrical and symmetrical meters, which are built into a almost mystical type of structure.
We got Dean Winkler.
Hi, so I'm Dean Winkler. I was responsible for the editing, the visual effects, and all the technical aspects of the video for Perfect Lives for the TV show. John and I had been working on a number of just video art pieces because we wanted to do them. And we had completed one with Philip Glass called Act 3. And we were just sitting around bullshitting. He said, so if you wanted to do anything next with anybody, like if you could do anything, who would you want to do something with? And I was like, well, I'm a huge fan of this guy, Robert Ashley. And John was like, it's funny you should say that. And so I, to this day, I preserve the files. And one of these days, I promise to upload a UHD version.
So the curious thing at the time, similar to what Peter was saying, is you'd go into a TV studio and you would try to create whatever fantasy under professional conditions. But instead, we shot Perfect Lives in Bob and Mimi's loft.
On 3/4.
On 3/4-inch color under video with a very, very good camera that the Rockefeller Foundation had given me money to buy, thanks to Namjoon Paik, who had told Howard Klein he needed to give me $70,000 for this camera. And then Dean did the most remarkable uploading of the 3/4-inch to, at the time, very brand new 1-inch recording. And we used very early digital frame stores to create semi-3D effects and different kinds of video animation.
We
I just want to note that Carlotta's name has popped up.
Carlotta, are you here?
I am.
Hello, Carlotta.
We also have Carlotta.
Carlotta.
Oh, I see my video is off.
Carlotta.
There you
There you
are.
are.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh.
No, I just got caught up on my emails. This is very exciting.
And this is, okay, you should introduce yourself. Carlotta Schoolman is the producer for the kitchen.
Yes, it's true. What Mimi said is true. And somehow or other, I got the good luck and good fortune to work on this piece. I'll tell you just a little story. I had just come back from India and I'd been away for a long time, and Mary tried to get me to come back to work at the kitchen, and I said, no, thank you. And then I said, well, unless I could produce something by Robert Ashley. Because he had been my favorite thing I ever had set up for the kitchen. And she said, well, ask him. And I said, no, you ask him. He wouldn't be able to say no to me. So one thing led to another. And it only took 5 years.
With a side trip to Belgium.
Well, that's not very long. That's not very long, considering the fact if you count 78 to 83, that's about making a right. I don't think it's so long anymore.
Maybe it seemed like a really long time, but you're right. It's not that extreme.
Well, you seduced me because you told me that Ashley had written an opera for television. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I realized that he had done Music with Roots in the Ether, which he also called an opera for television. And at the time when, those dark glasses and that big camp hat that he used to wear in all those photos, I thought, Music with Roots in the Ether isn't an opera for television. I think I know what an opera for television is. And then I went to Bob and Mimi's loft, and Blue and Bob played the park in the backyard. And I sat in a very low, comfortable chair, and I just imagined what the whole thing would look like. And I wrote you a very long letter, I think by hand, saying, this is what I saw, this is what I visualized, this is what I think we could do. And you said, okay.
And Bob always said that you knew the piece better than he did. I'm sure that wasn't true, was it, Mimi? But maybe it was.
I think he told me things because I kept asking over, you talk about the 5 years. I know that the 3 years before we actually went and shot it, I would just ask him over and over, what does this mean? What is this? How does this relate to that? When he explained the boogie woogie lessons to me, and I understood that the song was actually sort of a pop version of the entire opera. That's how we got to do the lessons. And it just was like, and I remember being on planes and sitting next to him and just saying, no, but you got to tell me what this means. After a while, he did. He actually he opened up about a lot of stuff.
What does it mean?
You'll never get to the end. Bob's mind was a Boy Scout cup.
Not a day goes by where I don't think about him. I don't think about Perfect Lives, or a quote from the opera doesn't have a relevance to my everyday life.
There are a lot of quotes that just pop into one's head, don't they? I mean, in the process of doing the recording and then the mixes for the video, I've worked really closely with Bob and heard a lot of stories, and he would tell little bits about where ideas came from, and I read the score. I still have a printed out copy somewhere in my apartment, and just the breadth and the depth of it was just astounding. I got involved really in a kind of very tangential way, and then was so very like honored to get so involved in the later parts.
Well, he was a great band leader because he opened up space for you to perform. And if you made him laugh, you knew that you were doing exactly what he wanted you to do, although there was never any indication of what that actually was. But when we were in the studio doing the editing, which I don't remember how long that took, but that was 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. I just remember constantly wanting to look over to see if he was laughing, and doing this, doing this. And the minute you could see that he was being amused by whatever you were doing, you thought, okay, we'll do more of that.
That got a little easier as the night went on.
There were reasons for that,
yeah.
and those were.
But I think that was, John, I think it was like 4 or 5 months of editing.
Yeah,
it was a long stretch.
Yeah, it was 5 nights a week, 4 or 5 months, and so this was a commercial facility. We were at a place called Teletronics that basically was one of the original video post facilities in New York. There were 3. There were UA Reeves and Teletronics. And during the day, it did commercials and some shows, but really commercials. And at night, so we were relegated to working the night shift because that was the only way where we could glom enough equipment. This is not like today when you can like edit, your videos on your phone. Editing in those days required millions of dollars of equipment. It required hundreds and hundreds of square feet of floor space and support, and getting access to this shit was a really big deal. And so there's no analogy today I can give you if you've grown up with an iPhone, but it's not, it was as inaccessible for most people as, say, getting a ride on a spaceship is today. And
this
was a spaceship that
if John had not known you and met you, and if you hadn't worked at Teletronics and made it all happen, the whole piece wouldn't ever have been finished.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say, but it's also like, John, it's one of the great things I consider I've ever had the privilege to work on.
And you guys even fed us every night too, which was even more amazing.
So look, I was hired at this video facility as an engineer. I built the editing suite that we were working in. And so, I went to management and said, listen, I know, you hired me as an engineer, but, there's this really cool project I'd like to do at night, and they're willing to pay some money. So can I take 5 months off from my day job and go do this? And they were like, yeah, sure. If someone wants to pay us for it. And the really, I don't know how to say this delicately, so I'll probably blurt it out badly, but I think we are all such fans of Bob's work, of this piece, of, it's just so meaningful to us, but you have to take a perspective, particularly when it was made, how far out of the culture this was, and how far out of the mainstream this was, and how far fucking out of society this was. And so after 5 months of editing and all of this work, and we had a support crew, and we got fed every night, all that's right. So after 5 months of this, management decides, okay, we're going to get the company together and we're going to screen an episode for the company. And so I took the bar, obviously, since I consider it the most accessible. And we had the big, meeting room at Teletronics, and we put it up and we screened the entire 25 minutes of the bar. And it was kind of a little bit of a Springtime for Hitler moment. It was kind of like, people didn't know quite what to do. So to see it today, the fact that you want to do a podcast, the fact that Verispeed, that Dorian, that all these people want to reinterpret it and keep doing it, I just think that's the fucking greatest thing ever. I just think it's awesome.
I was convinced, and I remember being on a plane with Bob, I was convinced that we were going to create a crossover hit. Because you and I had done I'm serious. You and I had done the piece for Philip Glass, and it had played on MTV, and it was, showing at all these festivals around the world. and winning awards. And I thought that Perfect Lives on Channel 4, presented with great gravitas, would be a crossover hit, and that we had actually split the cultural atom, and that we were actually going to go right into the nucleus of where art and entertainment intersect. Because I thought, this is funny, this piece is funny, and it's rich, and it's emotional, and it's got all these layers, and you can't just watch it once, you have to watch it over and over, because things will fly out at you that you'd never heard. And I thought, people are going to treasure this.
Well, they are.
Yes.
But it's fair. I mean, there's still references. I don't know if any of you guys are Legion fans. Noah Hawley, that TV show.
Yeah.
But if you've watched Legion, there are Perfect Lives references in Legion that are, I mean, it's, I'm a gigantic fan of his. And so it still resonates through the culture, but it was too far ahead of its time, John, for anything like you just described. I mean, or it was too out there, or however you want to say it, but there's no version of, and remember what the zeitgeist was, right?
Yeah.
I mean, MTV was exploding. Everybody was going to clubs and doing blow, and it was like a whole new thing. This was so far, that said, it's still relevant, and it's still great, and people are again, we're all sitting here talking about it all these years later, which is, I don't think you could have a bigger compliment. So
John, if Channel 4 had picked it up for a second season, what would have happened to all the characters?
It's not that Bob didn't write sequels. He did.
Right.
This was part of a series of operas that didn't necessarily fit in a traditional sequel fashion. But if you think about it, and I throw my great master Namjoon Paik into it, I feel like YouTube was exactly predicted by Paik, and the experimental television that we are being able to consume these days, like shows like Fleabag. To me, Fleabag is a direct descendant of Perfect Lives, with this knowing narrator who is bringing the audience inside of an inside of an inside of a kind of a soulless world. But Bob wrote sequels. It was just unfortunate in some ways that they didn't get necessarily the attention or the care or the investment that Perfect Lives did. But the way that lightning struck was that Perfect Lives toured for a long time. And Paul mentioned the pension building in Washington, D.C., this amazing structure. And we were down there with, I think we had a little mini jib crane for the camera, and we were putting live images on the TV sets, which were built as sets. And then I remember the performances in Paris, but I also remember the performances in London where Peter Greenaway came, and
that's how the special happened, the 4 American composers.
And one of them was about Bob and very much about Perfect Lives. And then Peter, at some point I was with him, and he just leaned over to me and he said, "I'm going to steal a lot of what you're doing." And I was like, "Well, thanks. That's great. Cool."
What an asshole.
Well, also, it was amazing what was done.
I looked at that documentary. It's very good. I don't know if that documentary is good because of Peter or it's just good because of you guys. I mean, he had great stuff to work with.
But that's what Perfect Lives did. It brought really wonderful things together. And getting the commission from Channel 4 was predicated on that series of shows that we did in London, Peter Greenaway making the documentary, because we actually had an opportunity to do a pilot version of The Bar with Belgian television. And we took was it the pension buildings recordings or was it recordings we did in London? But we recorded with multiple cameras the bar, and we all went to Liège in Belgium, which is kind of the Detroit of Belgium. And we spent, I don't know, 2 months working with PAL quad tapes and slowly trying, with no digital equipment at all, trying to put together a pilot version. And I was cutting out mats with pieces of paper and showing them how to do high contrast assemblages of images. I mean, it was really incredibly primitive. And Carlotta was trying to negotiate a contract with them while we were there in like a Holiday Inn, but going to a great bar after we were in the studios called the Cercle d'Hiver. And finally, I think Carlotta couldn't get the contract negotiated, so we stole all the tapes. Peter Gordon and I had Watergated one of the doors. We broke into the studio at like midnight, took the tapes out. I ended up, I think, taking the train to Paris. He drove to Amsterdam, and we flew back with these quad PAL tapes.
These are big things. These are big boxes.
2-inch, right?
Yeah. And we flew back to the United States having stolen the show. Carlotta, where are those tapes?
I often wonder, maybe Mimi knows. You know, it's funny, I don't remember the problem of negotiating a contract. What I remember was that they thought they owned it. Yeah. And I thought we owned it. And so you had to go get it.
And I was sure that Interpol was going to stop me at the border and we were all going to be arrested. But
Well, the thing is, the sad part is that actually the tapes were for naught because I think they were useless, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think we could ever get them transcoded from PAL. I don't think there was a PAL quad machine in the United States at that point.
Well, I want to speak to something about the so-called sequels to Perfect Lives, of which you are right, there are many. Perfect Lives set up essentially Ashley universe. I mean, it's a seed, and that just even reading that little story about that I didn't get to the end of, and which at the end of it it said, and the 17-year-old sister makes a decision about her life. It's what he expressed in the characters he developed in Perfect Lives that he made were emblematic of the characters that continued throughout the next 40 years.
Was there ever a consideration or like with like Atalanta, I believe in Improvement was the other sequel?
Well, they're all sequels.
Would
you consider them?
Was there ever a plan to make like a video thing with any of the other ones, or was it just with Perfect?
I'm sure Bob would have loved to, but he was writing too much material and actually having a lot of fun, I think, in spite of wanting to make video, having a lot of fun making new pieces with a much more complex vocal structure that I mean, it just became more complex vocally. And that, you know, I think was pretty exciting. Well, it was exciting.
The live performance aspect, you know, those pieces really took off. You know, Atalanta toured probably a lot more.
Toured all over the place. And then we did the following series, which was now Eleanor's idea. I mean, but Atalanta, okay, Atalanta, there's a nugget of Perfect Lives in there, definitely, but not so much. And then we get to the now Eleanor's idea. Now Eleanor worked at the bank. So did Linda. So did Donnie. And yeah, I mean, it just goes on. And actually, I just released I just released a 1995 performance of Foreign Experiences, and they're all over there too. You know, the characters are all just continuing their, I don't know how to say it. I mean, they're just continuing to try to figure out what life is all about. You know,
I don't know if you'd consider them sequels, but more just like a more developed, you know, developing the characters and the nuggets of little stories that started in Perfect Lives. Like,
well,
but
Bob gave us the image. It's a Boy Scout cup. It just one thing is within another, and it just you just either can zoom in to detail or you can zoom out to the universe, right, Paul?
but the amazing thing to me about it was that it seemed at some point that he really had it all in his mind, like from before any of it was on paper.
It's like the moment in the bar, the flash, right? What is it? What is it? You know, what does it say? The
Thunder is but a click, my teacher said. That took years to understand.
That's
You
exactly
also
right,
then-
Paul. It's the click, the whole
Yep.
thing. You're right there.
You also have to understand how much it took, how much things had to come together to make the video of Perfect Lives.
Oh, yeah.
Time, money, people. I mean, it was just, it's almost unbelievable that all of that stuff came together as it did. And the fact that that happened once, you know,
Always
was
the best thing. It's a miracle.
right. I mean,
but also-
having it happen twice,
But
good
also,
luck.
but also within the video art world and the art world and the music world at the time, I think that the circumstances, Perfect Lives is a fairly self-contained series of episodes where if you invest your time and your energy into Bob's voice, into blues playing, into the way it looks and feels and evolves, and all of the nuances, the little Easter eggs that are in the text, that are in the television episodes, it's a perfect life. It's got a perfect balance to it. And then the reaction of my peers was, what is this? Because it's not television. It wasn't video art. It wasn't music in the sense of what people were composing at the time. Remember, 76 is Einstein on the Beach. And then here comes this 3+ hour work where a guy's talking the entire time, where someone is playing the piano, and in settings that had a level of kind of energetic abstraction that no one had dealt with before, and
didn't
also
tell didn't tell a linear story, and told a story in a way where you could get brilliant nuggets of wisdom here and there, but it wasn't like a traditional 3-act narrative plot, shall we say. You know, a 90
Yeah, the first 10 times I saw it, I literally could not tell. And like, even when I was on the phone with John getting this worked out, like I mentioned I thought that Baby was Rodney's daughter this entire time, and I've probably seen the thing like 20, 30 times. Like, it's
I'm trying to explain to people that there was a visual structure that was complementary to the meter of each of the episodes, what was being played on the piano, and the cadence of how Bob was performing was kind of challenging because no one thought about that kind of thing. So the fact that it sat by itself away from other things was a challenge, but also it's one of the things that has made it an enduring piece.
Right.
And you know, I spend a lot of time in Europe, and in Europe, what comes back to me is I have no idea what's going on, but this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And when people ask about Bob and they ask about the sets and about the and about the way that we turned all these very basic things into something so extraordinarily beautiful. I like to tell everybody that when Bob and I were having conversation and we were talking about what it's going to look like, I without thinking, I said, I want to make you look like Doris Day.
Oh, good thing I never heard that.
Because I said, I want you to look like you're an enduring.
Poor Carlotta, she was on the edge the whole time. He's like Doris Day.
Well, he does. He looks like Doris Day. And we had money, but we didn't have much money. So instead of getting a smoke machine, Mimi and Carlotta and Mary Perillo smoked 4 cigarettes at a time to create smoke in Bob's loft.
I had forgotten.
That atmosphere. Yeah.
You know, another thing about the early part, or at least when, you know, that it's very memorable to me, is that, you know, you would, in the pension building, you couldn't hear anything anyway because it was so big and the stacks of speakers were in the middle of the room and there was nothing behind it. And it was kind of like the ongoing joke about you couldn't understand the words, right? You couldn't hear what anybody was saying. You couldn't understand the words.
Couldn't understand the words.
You really couldn't there. And then the way that Bob used his voice as an instrument, and and the way Peter processed the output, the idea of being able to understand what he was saying was kind of secondary to the art of what you were hearing.
And the interesting thing is, besides the technical challenges, I mean, we recorded the piano and the voice on an 8-track recorder in Bob and Mimi's loft with SMPTE code, with 1 track of dead space so that it wouldn't bleed onto the other tracks, to be able to do multi-track
a little bit, and
to be able to sync the video with the audio. And then at the end of the day, the notion of Raoul and Buddy playing in the Holiday Inn is predicated. I mean, there's a relationship between I can't understand what's going on with I'm not supposed to understand what's going on. And those two things kind of marry to each other. And I'm sorry about not making Baby's boogie woogie lessons more obvious to you, and the relationship with Rodney.
I always thought that was the appeal of it, though. It's like it's a mystery. It doesn't get old, and you can keep staring at it, and it looks different every time you look at it.
And even if you know every word and can read every word, there's enough of a mystery and a mythology that it's built on an armature of mythology, and it is wrapped in mysterious layers, but deliberately so. And that all kind of goes back to the persona that Bob created for himself as a composer and as a performer. I like to often say that Bob was just basically, I know he cared, but if the performance started and by the end of the performance there were 2 people left, he was fine with that. He was actually quite pleased with that. As well as if there were 100 people at the start and 100 people at the end. Because it wasn't fuck you as much as I'm going to continue doing what it is I'm doing, because this is, I've got to do this. This is who I am. This is exactly what I am.
Well, and it also, look, the work requires you to release yourself from a lot of things that you normally have to hold on to. And some people can do that happily, and some people can't. I think that's really one of the most beautiful things about his work. And if you're willing to do that, and willing to let yourself flow, and willing to let yourself be okay with the fact that maybe you're not even though that's your 25th time watching it, you're not following the whole narrative. And that's really okay, because you're getting so much out of another listening you didn't get, or another viewing the time before. That's really beautiful. I mean, that's part of, to me, the fantastic appeal of the work, but it's not for everybody. And it's a big ask. I think sitting through 7 episodes of Perfect Lives is a big ask, okay? I think it's worth it, and I think it's beautiful, and I love that people are rediscovering it. But it's one of those things that if you're willing, that rewards someone who puts that in. But it's not for everybody. It's like what John was saying. It's not,
So you gotta like pace yourself. It's like eating a really good dinner, but you don't want to eat 7 of them in one night.
Well, I'm not. Yeah, I can't binge watch 7 episodes on Netflix either of anything. So I mean, it's still.
Let's take it to Netflix.
I'm remembering now those times when we did all 7 episodes. Not all of the places wanted all 7 episodes, but Bob wanted all 7 episodes in a lot of places, and we did. And I always loved those. I like them better than when we did 3 at a time. Although that was good too.
Although Carlotta, I do remember you. I remember you tearing up.
4 in a night.
I remember you tearing up in the edit room when we screened the whole thing. We got to the backyard, which was really beautiful.
God, this is
Yeah.
But you were the producer at the kitchen. That's not representative of the world, okay? For the world, it's a very big ask, 7 episodes of Perfect Lives. And I think if you put it in, it's worth it.
So is John Steinbeck. I mean, so is like everybody else,
One thing that
I just want to get back to something that what's oh my God, what's your name? And now you're
Dan.
No, the other one.
Ron.
The recording man.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, by the way, I'm holding up.
Co-host.
Where's the libretto?
Those times when we were traveling with the piece, and there were a number of times when people walked out, and I would be, in that day I was operating a camera, and I would be like looking over behind where I was standing shooting Blue Jean, and I would see these people just heading for the door, and it killed me in a way. I just couldn't believe it. But then at the end, when the final episode was finished, everybody that was left stood up, and it was a huge standing ovation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the nature of the piece.
One of the
At
things
that time. I mean, it's not the nature of the piece now, but that's the nature of the response.
I show the excerpts that Dean picked oftentimes.
Dean.
I show this sometimes in screenings, and it still gets what the hell is that?
Yeah, even in a 2.5-minute version.
Yeah. I want to just say, I don't want to miss out on an important thing that for me was essential from the first time I heard Bob and Blue play, through all the iterations, and then what we did when we shot the video and we edited it, is Blue's playing. Bob, unbelievable genius. I mean, he is writer first in terms of the tightness and the intensity of the text. But what Blue was able to do to create a character, a real 3-dimensional character, almost exclusively through playing the piano as the accompanist in a bar in the Midwest to a singer who is talking about committing the perfect crime as a work of art, or a work of art as the perfect crime. And the subtlety, first of all, the repetition of established themes, and then the improvisations around those patterned elements. I beg him on certain nights to play riffs that I knew, he would play if I asked him to. But then the styling that we did on the hands and on the piano to fuse his playing and it's just really hands, piano, backlighting, sunglasses, to create a character from these bits of abstraction that, since I'm married to a pianist, I'm very attuned now to, like with a dancer, how certain things really identify the persona of a performance, the character of performance. But what Blue did, how he did it, to a certain extent, the way I framed it, knowing what he was going to do, but he played to the camera framing. All of these things are actually kind of a hidden but very extraordinary part of Perfect Lives. There's two main characters. One of them's talking, and the other one has little cows stuck to his hands.
Which may or may not have been the greatest idea, but Blue is not only just playing. Early on, I remember before, well, really early on, he just read the text as he was playing. So he came from it from a literary imagination too. But by the time you made the video, you realize that he managed to play in a way that repeated on the piano the camera movement, the things we all know about, like zooming in or zooming out or verticals. And will anyone ever forget his like backyard? Boing. I mean, he does that again and again. So he makes this spiral again and again, and he wouldn't have had to do it. I suppose he could have made the same music another way, but he absolutely copied the templates that had been developed for each episode.
Yeah, and again, over the course of time, but certainly if you look back at the 7 episodes, that character, that supporting character, the accompanist, is so beautifully established with, again, very minimal and extremely abstracted elements. And yes, maybe he would say, how are you going to shoot this? And I would say, well, we're going to shoot it this way, or I'm going to shoot it this way, and that's how we set it up. And he played to camera, like a dancer would dance to camera, or a rock star would know how to go in for that screaming guitar solo moment. He would do it with his hands, and also with an understanding that the extension of his character was that keyboard, that those two things were going to define one of two main characters, but always in this interesting combination with the sound of Bob's voice, which Peter and Paul and the mixes are extraordinary, because they're mixes for television, but they combine a lot of the subtlety of the performance and enhance it in lots and lots of ways.
Oh, and those piano tracks were extraordinary that he recorded. For the TV opera.
I have to make a plug now for your listeners, Daniel. If anybody is really a fan of this and has been watching it online, please go get the DVD. It's on Amazon. The quality of the sound mix has been way upped on the DVD. We redid it and resynced it. And so anything you hear online, it's what Paul was just saying about the quality of the piano tracks. It's way better on the DVDs. And someday there'll be an HD version. But right now, if you're a fan, please watch it that way.
I can't agree with that enough. I mean, the quality of the sound is just really special now.
Well, yeah, I think that they fixed the sound for the CD release, and then
I sunk it from the CD release to the DVD.
And then Dean put it back together. Dean, how is it possible? How can you turn something that is in this little square format, how can you turn it into HD?
It's one of those things I've been working on for a long time, because I needed to do it for other things, but I wouldn't change the aspect ratio, because that's the composition of the piece. But there are techniques of up-resing and noise reduction and ways of interpolating pixels now that have just come so far since when we made it that go to my Vimeo channel or my YouTube channel and you can see HD versus the originals on even on Perfect Lives. I think there's an HD excerpt and you'll see the difference. And so we will not mess with the aspect ratio. It will still be a 4:3 letterbox in a 16:9 frame, but the quality will be much, much better. And as it turns out, the way things stream online in the world, if you have more pixels to start with, even if they weren't there to begin with, they stream a hell of a lot better now because the compression algorithms work better with more pixels. So it's just, it's, I guess the audio equivalent would be like, Sonic Solutions, how you can restore, if you're willing to spend the time and the effort, you can take you can take a precious recording and bring it up to sort of modern standards, keeping the aesthetic.
But I like to say,
add pixels.
Yeah.
Add pixels?
Absolutely, you can interpolate.
You've got a bag of pixels right behind
I
you.
have, I never travel without my extra pixels. You can interpolate things in a way that, the short answer is yeah.
Hey, he and I in 2019 and 2018 worked together on a project in the Middle East where he was the technical manager and the artistic overlord on, was it a dozen film and video installations in a brand new museum in Doha, Qatar.
Yeah, and some of them are 24K by 4K.
And
they're like nothing else in the world.
Oh, and yeah, so science at the service of art and art at the service of science.
And John's piece is 28 monitors, all of which work together.
30.
Yours is the only one that isn't giant screens, but it's great. I mean, they're great, yeah. So there's lots, a lot has happened since we made Perfect Lives in terms of technology.
Still the best NTSC you're ever going to see.
I mean, it looks great on my my CRT. I was playing it on I ran it out through like a VGA to composite thing the other day.
Unfortunately, analog video and tubes do not bring a warmth that vinyl and turntables do toward.
No, but you know what they do bring? They bring the ability to dissolve. If you ever have a chance to watch 2001 on a print, I saw it at the Museum of the Moving Image last year or something. If you ever have a chance to watch it off a film print, we don't get any, it's the same thing with the CRT. You don't get the subtlety of control of colors you have today, but the glows and the dissolves have no quantizing. We have all become used to the fact that every time we see a dissolve on our computer or our flat screen monitor, it's okay to have little lines in the dissolve. Bullshit. They aren't there, and they're not there on your CRT.
Well, like tracking shots too. I noticed like there's a lot less stutter with the image if you have like the cameras moving and somebody's walking.
Well, that's a frame rate discussion. That's less CRT than tech. But yeah, I mean, but CRTs, look, we've given up some things for convenience that I don't think we all really intended to give up, and we have to get back to. And that's, if you look at what's happening with HDR now in cinema, go watch a Dolby HDR film that was made from beginning to end, and it's a whole different experience because it addresses all of these things.
Like the black value problem?
The black value, the quantizing, the contrast ratio, you can go on and on, but yeah, the color range, so anyway, and that's the other thing you do when we make a version of Perfect Lives at higher resolution, we also bring it into a modern color space.
I have to say that one of the other reactions I got back in the 1980s that I still get now is the look and feel of the 7 episodes is unlike anything else. It was a conscious decision to make certain choices. But I have several friends, including my friend Jean-Paul Fargier, who was highly influenced by the work, who made his own television opera with a French poet and tried to do a lot of the things that we did. But I think, again, a unique series of talents coming together and a unique series of circumstances, beginning with the lessons, which I had forgotten about until a few years ago when I was digitizing all of my own old masters and actually came across a master tape of the lessons, which was a prequel / pilot for Perfect Lives, half-hour long, music word fire, and I would do it again, Cuckoo the Lessons, which are actually our version of the boogie woogie lessons that are contained inside of the bar episode. You see them flash forward in that episode, but there's quotations throughout the opera from the lessons and vice versa, because it capitalized on a lot of the work that we had done in Galesburg, a lot of the location shooting that we'd done, and all the template work. So it's a series of sort of mini versions, abstracted pop versions of the full opera. And man, it's really weird.
I love that version. I have to say it's one of my favorite parts of Perfect Lives, the lessons.
Yeah.
I loved them then, and I still think they're really special.
I think Peter in particularly shines in that production. You know, I mean, Peter Gordon's just the way.
Is that ever going to come out as like an extra feature on a future DVD release or anything like that?
Actually, I haven't done it on DVD yet, but it's available. It's just at 25 minutes. I'll do it.
I've got it digital if you want it.
Well, let's put it on the HD version.
Is there anywhere to see it now?
I'm promising you right now, Dean, whatever you want to do, Dean.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'll send you a link. I've got it up on Dropbox.
Oh, I'd love to see it. That'd be great. I haven't seen it in so long.
It will actually make you weep because it is really out there. But you can, it's sort of like it's like a live, raw acoustic version of Perfect Lives in a way, because it really cuts to the heart of a lot of the emblematic elements that make the piece work so well.
There's a lot you can sing along to.
Oh, yeah.
I cuckoo, you to cuckoo.
Right. That's continuous for me.
I would do it again.
Right.
Do you guys have particular things you wanted to ask Ron and Daniel?
I mean, we had like a rough plan going into this, but I sort of figure like you guys know it better than I do, so I was just sort of bouncing off, seeing what came up. I was going to ask actually about like producing it for television and like actually shooting the episodes. I don't think we talked a whole lot about what went into like shooting the episodes basically.
Well, let me go into that just very, very simply. It was done in layers. The landscapes in Illinois, according to the agreed upon templates per episode, were filmed in the summer of 1980. Then they were often used and replayed during performance. But after the contract was negotiated with Channel 4, and then they used it, those same templates in performance at the Almeida Theatre when they performed in London. Then the rush at the last minute to do the interiors and the specific locations that we didn't have from Galesburg were done. I think that all of that last thing happened in 6 months or less, really, really fast. So we had these landscapes that just went along. And then when the money started coming through, we were back here in New York. And we arranged to shoot some things in the loft at 10 Beach Street. And then other things were done on location, like the supermarket was done uptown. The church was done right here in Soho on the church on.
It was 6th Avenue and Washington Place, the Washington Square.
No, it was.
Houston.
Oh, Houston. What is the name of the
Houston. I can never remember the name of it.
St. Anthony's, was it?
It's where I vote.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's right across where Dara Birnbaum lives.
Yeah.
It's on Sullivan and,
Oh,
So across the street from the cheese place, right?
right,
Um,
no longer exists.
whatever. So those things happen really fast, and it was a rush to get them together. And what I'd like to know, so all of that, then those other elements were made. Then all these elements were together, like the landscapes according to the template, the interior shots, and the singing according to the template. So all of these things, so that everything that had to do with the park, for example, John had been very specific. Even if he was shooting just Bob singing in the studio, there was that motion from left to right across the street. So all of those elements, having started in 1980 and finished in 82, 83, fit together beautifully. And then we went in, and then Dean made it all happen.
The templates were an original idea that Bob had. That
almost like a storyboard.
No, it's
Do either of you have his book Outside of Time?
Yes, but I also have a notebook of original sketches in his hand and my hand of the original intentions. They're like keys. Yeah. It's like saying, all right, this episode's going to be in the key of G. This episode's going to be in the key of a horizontal line at the bottom of the screen. So it was a way of anticipating, taking puzzle pieces and making sure that if they didn't fit exactly, that they related to each other in a tonal way. I expanded that to include a color palette, and Mary Ashley was involved with creating certain elements, including the etched glass that went on the piano over the keys.
And then Jackie Humbert made the costumes.
And who did the makeup?
Jackie.
Jackie did the makeup. And I had a friend named Rocky Pinciotti who was a neon artist. And he created a series of neon pieces that we could use as anchor points visually. And then the lighting director and I, based on the palette, created a series of lighting effects for each episode for Bob and for the piano. All those things got recorded. Again, here's the kitchen in Bob and Mimi's loft. 3 paces away was where we shot Bob as the narrator. Literally. He had a TV set with a very simple prompter, which he occasionally looks down at, and occasionally we moved his eye line. We had one other prop, which was a dangling light bulb, which was representative of some of the celestial forces that are in play throughout the opera, not just Venus and Mars, but this idea of the transposition of souls and reincarnation. The camera moves were all dictated by the templates, whether it's panning or moving or circling or whatever. And then it was, I don't remember how long we shot. It wasn't all that long, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then I sat and did an offline edit with time-coded cassettes to make selects. And somewhere, I haven't found them, but somewhere I have the actual rough cuts. And then I took all that material, and Dean and I sat there for weeks and made animations, various ways of, with the lightning strikes and adding rain and then
the lines of the title sequence, right? Those had all the.
That was a computer graphics company that did that for us. I don't remember, but it was very early computer graphics.
But the lines all represented the various aspects of the template, right?
In the opening sequence, based on those preliminary things, and then a lot of it was the translation between, all right, here's the key, but here's how we're going to play in the key. And so that's how the title sequence happened. And then it was a tremendous number of video layers, which at the time weren't stacked digital files. They were, you record to one piece of tape, then you record to another piece of tape, and then you record to another. And I don't know how many layers we went down, but it's surprising. Well, you would rekey the blacks.
Well,
So
yeah,
horrendous noise.
that's part of why we had to work at night, was because we needed 8 1-inch machines, 7 to play back and 1 to record. And the only way we could get access to having 8, which is the most the system could possibly do.
And we had a couple of graphic artists, and then Mary Perillo in a previous life had been a Chiron operator for the USA Sports Network. So she knew how to actually program the Chiron to do the on-screen display text. And suffice it to say that
Chiron is a text generator machine.
Yeah.
It's the original character generator for TV, and it became like Phoenix.
And when Bob understood that Mary could program the Chiron to break up and kern and shape the text into graphics, that was just all hell broke loose, because what Bob is doing with language in the piece, we could now do with language on the screen. We were the first, and text on screen as graphic element after that, of course, became a huge thing.
Carlotta, you were spelling control? Were you spelling the spell checker? No?
Have any misspellings in the piece? We probably do.
No, there actually are not any misspellings, but I think at some point there must be.
But the process
really did not have a spell check.
Yeah, because I'm a terrible speller. But the process, while layered, was extremely linear and narrative. So we started with the first image of episode 1 when we were editing, and we finished with the last image of episode 7 when we were finished. And one by one, we were moving them from the inbox to the outbox, and that was a tremendous feeling of accomplishment.
But you should also realize that in building layers like that, there's no undo button. Like, you know how you can undo today? That just didn't exist. So when you took 7 playback sources and did whatever you were doing with them and recorded them to a tape and then used that as another source, what you had laid down, if you wanted to change that, you had to go back that whole step and redo it. So it's a very different way of working than you might do today, let's say, if we were building this in Premiere.
And because Dean and I had done this piece with Phil Glass, which involved a lot of early digital video animation, my notebooks for each edit have the time code numbers of in and out, but also have the drawings of how I thought the layers would need to be created to be able to sort of pull off whatever effect we have. But some of the most startling stuff is just what we shot in Galesburg, or just what we shot in the loft. You don't have to get tricky CGI to have to have 2 tractors going around each other in the middle of a parking lot to simulate the orbits of Venus and Mars.
Or real tractors.
What's that?
Those are real tractors.
Those are real tractors and real people in costumes. And look at Jill's high heels. If you want to see stunt work, Jill's high heels are like really big. But then, yeah, we were in a supermarket and we were in a church and some of the most startling things, the episodes that don't get as much play, like the church, there's a series of really weird props and weird atmospheres that we created. And then we put it in this very absurd series of settings. But we respected, there are places to put commercials in each episode. Did you know that? Channel 4 was non-commercial, but it was written so that you could put the commercials in, so it would be a full broadcast half hour.
Carlotta, you are muted.
Thank you. Didn't want my dog to bark out loud. I was just thinking about the church. So there's one thing that John left out, which was that, thank God, everything got recorded there as much as it did, because at some point the priest came in and he just could not believe what he was seeing, and he kicked us out.
Yep.
And I was really, I don't know how to describe what I was, because I had gone to a lot of trouble to set it up with him, because he was my neighbor. And he was furious, absolutely furious at the material. And
Well, I'm sorry, but it was the P Monkey Bride, and
it was.
I mean, it was hard. It was. I think he rightly assumed, understandably assumed, that it was sacrilegious,
Right.
and disrespectful, and of course, to his eyes, it was.
I agree 100%. I mean, he thought that he had let in the devil.
Yeah.
And he probably let in pretty close to the devil. If you saw the Pamunky.
That would be actually, no, you're referring to John, aren't you?
Yeah.
So the green hats are supposed to represent the devil. But no, I was going to ask though, where did the ideas for the costuming come from? Because it's like very distinctive costuming.
Jackie Hubbard and Mary Ashley dreamed it up. It's totally Bob again. He just said, I remember he once told me that Mary said, "Are you sure you want to go with this?" Because they dreamed up these strange costumes like they came from Mars most of the time, and bought all this silk. But before they went and bought and started sewing, Mary said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And he did.
But that again is Bob as band leader. The tension there that just created so many extraordinary things is he invites you to, he says, "Come join the band. Here's your place." And you're like, "Well, all right, what's my part?" "Well, you're going to write your own part, basically." And you think, "Oh, well, that's pretty cool." And you push out something, and he either laughs or he talks about it, and so you push it a little harder, or you come up with something else, and then he really laughs, and you go, "Okay, I must be doing something." And the relationship continues to the point where you're just, every song you're going to have a solo, and in fact, in most of the songs, you're playing the solo the full time. I mean, and the work is created in such a way, and it's mixing and post-production at the end of the day, but where all these parts go in and out of focus throughout each episode. And his genius as the band leader is he's encouraging you, he's giving you inspiration, but he's not telling you at all what to do. He never says stop. He may divert you or deflect you in some way, but it's always a very educational, as well as, "Oh my God, I don't know why I didn't think of that in the first place." And when we did the lessons, for example, I had some very early paint box computer graphics stuff that I had done for it. And I threw a little bit of that in when I was doing the rough cut. And I remember him saying, "Do you have any more of that?" And I said, "Well, why?" He said, "Well, because it," he didn't say, "Oh, it really works," but he's just like, it was pretty clear the things that I was doing that he really would like me to do more of. So then when it was time to actually edit, I didn't feel there were any restrictions at all, except time and money. And when there's a moment in the bank where there's a yellow circle of light, there's an orange light bulb, there's Bob, and the camera's in a grid, and I'm changing focus to go from the way back to Bob. And right as I get to Bob, he turns to the camera. And it like gave me chills when we shot it. It's like, how did he know that I was just in focus on his face? Because he's performing, right? And he just turns and looks at me like this, and he turns back. And I see that, I watch that again and again and again, and I get, oh my God, he knew. Oh, how did he know? He knew.
John,
Spontaneous invention.
you should know, by the way.
Spontaneous invention, right? Yeah. By the way, back to the costumes. Over John's right shoulder, you see one of the screens or one of the images, like the planets are spinning around themselves. But those two colors are taken out of, they're sampled out of David and Jill's costumes, right? If you look at them, for example, stomping around in the park, or no, I'm thinking specifically. I think it's I remember them wearing them in the.
Well, they're in the supermarket in the living room.
And the supermarket and the supermarket is what I'm thinking. And they're in the field, and you can easily tell that those are their colors. But then again, they're also in that pink and greeny various versions, even in the backyard too. You know, so it all fit together.
So it's like a really close-up shot of their clothing. That's the like sun animation.
Yeah, it's just it's like sampling.
The sun animation, the planet animations are video feedback, but the colors were sampled to match the clothing, but it's all DVE video feedback stuff that was done just for that. I also, something that John didn't mention because it's obvious to him that it might not be to you, is that this was all shot single camera. And that's kind of a big deal today. You probably wouldn't shoot. You wouldn't maybe shoot this single camera today, but it all was. And look at it. I mean, it all worked. So I just wanted to mention that for John.
And all in sync with the most primitive of possible things, but at the time, the cutting edge of the technology. And the camera, which was an Ikegami camera I had bought for $70,000 with a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation because my video mentor, Namjoon Paik, had insisted that Howard Klein give me a grant so I could buy this camera so that I could shoot at the Olympics at the beginning of the end of 1979, beginning of 1980, and that I could shoot Perfect Lives with it. And it was a $70,000 3-tube color camera with an exquisite lens, an Ikegami lens. But unfortunately, we were recording down to 3/4 inch, but we made it as beautiful as possible. Dean made it as beautiful.
I think one thing we just glossed over is the way Bob and Jill and David and Blue performed both in live performances and for the video camera at the end. Was Bob did not memorize every bit of that, every word of that text. So just like the metronome, we didn't have a real teleprompter. I have a collection of 5x8 cards, dog-eared by now. But Bob would then he would use a correcting selectric, and you might have to make a new set. I think there were a couple of sets. So the way they got the text on stage was there were monitored, regular old tube televisions set up in front of each performer. And backstage, you have a variety of different people who are literally, in many ways, they're sort of the conductor, except they're following the beat. So they've got to know the beat. So they're following the beat and trying to keep up with the performers. And then if they get lost, whatever. So they're literally, there's a little camera showing the cards, broadcasting it or sending it to the TV. So they are totally dependent upon Kay Strawler or Ned Sublette backstage pulling cards across in front of. I know.
Didn't we have
I had to do it once. It was not easy.
No,
I had to do it.
Terrifying. It must have been terrifying.
You had to be in the right place, and you had to only pick up one card at a time.
Didn't we have an electronic prompter for the
Yes, I understand that Ned Sublette was good at it, but can you imagine Kay did that all over Europe?
She was brilliant.
We picked her up in Galesburg, Illinois, and she just was incredible.
Didn't we have an electronic prompter for when we shot the video in the loft?
No.
I don't think so, no.
So how did we do it? I was trying to remember.
Ned was in the
I
room.
think that was Ned, no?
Ned was in the room.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
It was one of the real backstage things that was unusual.
But one of the
But
things
there-
that was the cards and the way that they looked ended up becoming something that got pushed into and on screen, because the way the cards looked with the breaks and the lines and the way that Bob would notate the emphasis was extremely graphic.
Right, because there's all the like text on screen that's not necessarily part of the libretto directly throughout the entire piece. And so that's kind of modeled off the teleprompter, or not quite teleprompter.
Yeah, well, by the time they got it's the Peter Greenaway, which I just saw after many years. I just saw it again. He actually showed some actual typewriter. I mean, he actually took a picture of bits of the cards and showed slides of that. But by the time it got to the Chiron, no, that was much more official. I mean,
I have a set of the original cards, and I also have taped into my notebooks the cards that we were going to then translate into the on-screen time.
But the Chiron was an early machine that you typed on, so that was all made up completely in post. There was nothing physical or shot about that.
no, that was all typed in right there. Mary was just doing their bidding.
The lightning bolts were cut out of paper and then keyed and animated onto screen.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it was like a cutout of the lightning bolt, and then basically you just invert the colors from the dark part on the screen.
Or you take a key, you add some feedback. I mean, these were all 80s, video art techniques. And again, I can't emphasize enough the magic of having all of these resources come together. Even the 5 months of post-production, 5 nights a week, even then should have been $500,000, and I think we had $120,000 budget or something in 1983 dollars. The amount of time, I mean, it was just a magical thing that all of this was able to happen, and the scale of that magic, it's kind of hard to fathom today.
And then imagine not being able to do anything during the day, during the week.
Well, sure.
Because you were sleeping and then you're going to be up all night. So it was like, thank God for the first cash machines, because the banks were always closed by the time I was getting up and getting dressed.
No, I just need to put out a big thank you, actually, to the kitchen. Mary, at that time, she was Mary MacArthur Griffin. Mary Griffin was the new director, and it was just amazing that she took on a project of this scale. She didn't care if it was like a 30-minute piece or 7 half-hour episodes. It was like, okay, no problem. And so it was a big production for the kitchen to take on, huge. And I was allowed to work on it for 5 years. That was kind of unheard of. I would usually spend, I don't know, 2 months scheduling the next year. 1 month for this artist, 1 month for that artist. It would take me what felt like a really long time to put that schedule together. And I just, even at the time, and in particular now, it's just stunning that she was able to take on a project that big and allow the video person to spend 5 years on it.
No, I mean, obviously no one was getting rich and your salaries were not that large, but still, it it took up a lot of air in the kitchen, and I've always thought afterwards, probably a lot of people had their noses out of joint about all of the resources that the kitchen ended up putting into this piece.
Noses out of joint is a kind of understatement.
Yeah.
Were there ruffled feathers?
Well, let's just say without if you were not Robert Ashley and John Sanborn, the people working on Perfect Lives, I would assume you might have had a problem, that you might have been understandably a bit jealous. Well, gosh, why don't they direct some of that money toward my piece,
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, it's perfectly understandable.
I had a conversation with Bob once early on. I had asked, how did the Once Group become the legendary Once Group? And he said, we put it in a press release and we called ourselves the Legendary Once Group, and we became the Legendary Once Group. And that was a big lesson for me of like, you need to ask for what you want or you're not going to get it. And Bob was not in any way an effete asshole, but Bob would ask for what Bob wanted because it was a very clear line between intention and result. And I identify with this idea of putting people's noses out of joint because I've done it for a long time. But I remember that conversation very clearly. Oh, we put it in a press release. We called ourselves the Legendary Once Group, and that's how it's really that simple sometimes. For some artists, it's like, this is what I need to do, and I'm going to do it.
Well, I think he said about Perfect Lives that it was about the fabulous Midwest.
Yes. Well, and I also famously said it was a comic opera about reincarnation.
Ron, how hard would it be for us to change the banner on the website to like the Essential Anomaly Podcast?
You just do it, dude. Just fucking do it. And that's the Bob Ashley secret, is you just fucking do it. He's going to write an opera for television, which people ask him to explain for decades later. He just fucking did it.
Well, it's not very hard. It's simple. Just say what you believe. In other words, if you think this is the Essential Anomaly Podcast, say it.
Yeah.
And then somebody else is going to refer to it and say, oh yeah, people say it's essential. I mean, we have a president who's very good at this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, definitely for this episode, we can at least say that there's about 600% more people. So that's pretty exciting.
We're doing something for a podcast?
Oh yeah, this is we're recording a podcast right now.
This is what happens when you come in late.
Oh, sorry. I thought I could explain it to you. Yeah, no, we're recording a podcast episode.
Oh, lovely.
How long is
We've
the
been recording
episode?
full time, faces and all.
They came to me and they said, we want to do a
haven't
podcast
checked in
of
a few
Perfect Lives. And I said, well, there's a bunch of other people who would be really interesting to bring to the party. I always, being in the Perfect Lives band and the way, as Dean said before, how all the elements came together is one of the things that makes Perfect Lives so enduring.
But as far as now, they're going to work on the next generation. And what we all have to remember is that virtually none of them were born when you were making this piece.
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. That's really good of you to point out.
No, seriously.
I wasn't born when this piece was being made or came out, and my hair's already fallen out. That's why I'm wearing this hat.
But when I first met Dorian and David, and I thought, what audacity. I said, why do you want to do Perfect Lives? They said, it's so beautifully written. We feel the need to be able to, we want to interpret it. We want to be able to perform this opera. And I thought, God, this is the biggest testament to how powerful the work is. And Verispeed and La Vidas Perfectus, the idea that actually it will be passed from generation to generation to generation is extraordinary. There's very few other.
It's like in a sense, right? Like I find when I'm watching it, like I'm not I can't really say that I'm like singing along, but I find myself kind of compelled to sort of talk in some of the rhythms to myself, sort of like when you're like humming a song to yourself or something.
But there are a lot of composers who have been highly influenced. I have a friend named Pamela Z, who is a spoken word musician, quite brilliant. And she will go on and on and on and on and on and on about how important Bob was as an influence to her. And you can hear it in some of her work. But Dorian and David have actually written operas for television. But the idea of getting inside the text, inside the music and the settings, and performing it is extraordinary, because it's not like going in and doing a Philip Glass opera where there's a set of traditions that can guide you. This is unknown territory. This is brand new stuff. Are you going to sound just like Bob? Because how essential is that cadence and that texture to the performance and reception of the work? How do you interpret that sound, that persona, that intelligence? That's pretty heavy stuff to deal with.
In fact, I think it's a really high bar, John. I think Bob's voice is so magical and his delivery is so seminally, incredibly important to the piece that I don't think you can try to imitate it, because you're never going to be that good. So
what do you bring to the party?
How do you deal with that? And I think it's wonderful that people are doing that, but I don't think we should ever lose sight of the fact that it's certainly for me, listening to Bob in Perfect Lives doesn't grow old. You know, it's like I could put it on tonight and it would be just as magical, because his
you know what my other favorite mood music is Dust.
Yes. I would say the same thing, actually. Yes.
I just love to have that on in the room when I'm thinking or trying to kind of wander in my imagination.
But see, after Perfect Lives, I mean, it really all depended upon Bob. David and Jill were just extraneous chorus things. So then Bob got really into, afterwards, other people's cadences and voices, and that's Dust too. I mean, then he really learned to use Joan and Jackie and Sam and Tom. He really learned to use it, and that what he moved on after Perfect Lives to. Those operas are interesting in that they're as precise about the time and the beats and the meter, all of that, but they're more welcoming to other performers, other voices, other interpretations.
There was more, I think, more direction too.
Yes, he did. He directed. Yes.
It was really a big difference.
Yeah.
The characters were in many cases continuous, but the way people performed was much more personal.
Yes.
And one of Bob's
Yeah. But again, they don't act on stage. It comes out. Bob wants the performer wants it to come out of the human who has integrated that text and that music into his soul, So nobody's like pretending to make a movement or such and such a thing. No walking across the stage, no.
And he had enormous skill in getting people to sing their best.
Yeah.
You could hear those people in many other circumstances, and then hear them in one of Bob's pieces, and the quality of their singing is very special in Bob's pieces.
Like Tom, for example.
He's the prime example.
Tom is a prime example, but on the other hand, it's not so dumb. Bob wrote for Tom. He knew what Tom could do, what he sounded like. So it's strange to me that a lot of performers or a lot of composers don't you know, they want the performer to do something, but sometimes the performer can only do these things, you know, and it's just.
Right.
I remember a fair amount of coaching going on with Tom in the early Atalanta days,
Yes.
right? Like
And
joke about nailing his feet to the floor because he was tapping too much, you know?
Tom, dear Tom, this is, well, it's okay. Tom had a bad habit of tapping his foot.
He learned to stop.
Didn't Bob tap his foot?
Bob tapped his fingers.
Bob counted on his fingers.
Fingers against his thigh.
Right. Counting.
Yes.
Yes, but hopefully not visibly.
So when he was directing the singing, how would that, would he sort of like, singing, talking?
No, what you have to realize is that when you refer to singing and talking, Bob never referred to anything he did as talking. It's all singing.
Oh, okay.
And so the direction is in the music. It's written in the music. The beats and the rhythm are there for the singer. Not only that, for any of these other operas, they've got a key. They've got the key they're supposed to be singing on and around. So it takes a lot of practice to embody the character. So
And where the syllables fell too.
where the syllables fell, because Bob often put them in places that you don't normally speak. Like, you know,
And so would he kind of coach people, or would he just kind of leave them with the written up?
No, he got into much more intense rehearsal. Yeah, I mean, but you can't count Bob. You can't count Jill and David. They had chorus parts to do and interjections. So, but these other pieces, the later ones, are much more complicated as far as.
And in the early days of live performance with Perfect Lives, and Peter can dispute this, but I always felt that it was Peter's pop sensibility that tickled Bob. And it came out a lot through Jill and David being this kind of extraterrestrial backup singers.
Yeah.
As well as kind of embodying the male and femaleness of the entire piece. Mm-hmm. But there is a lot of, I mean, Peter was talking about laying down drum tracks, and that was kind of that's a very interesting take on Perfect Lives, because I always think of it as voice first, piano second, and then the various percussive and other beds. And there's times where I know that Peter didn't necessarily sample Jill and David's voices, but used them as samples in a kind of a rudimentary way.
At vocoder, you could kind of do a crude form of sampling and work with them.
And the other thing that I would suggest that you do a pickup with Blue and Peter and Mimi about the early days, but also, I don't know why Peter signed off, but I think there's a lot to be said about the evolution of the production on the music throughout the course of how Perfect Lives went from early days to television.
You know, that brings up a question that I've always had, and I've never asked you, Mimi. How did it get from the album to a piece for a 7-episode piece for music?
Oh, we sort of went over that in the beginning.
Well, you can refresh me later then.
No, well,
You'll have to wait for the episode to drop.
Oh, okay.
a long time before, Phil McKenna had told Bob that he wanted to do a remake, a la Phil McKenna, of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh.
So, that's part of this nugget of it. But remember, there you've got the elements of the Midwest, the storm and whatever. And I was just reading this early, I think you must have had it, an early synopsis that probably, I don't remember, very early, it's dated October 77. And Bob is calling the piece famous in a certain sense. And the synopsis or the first paragraph is a lot of shorthand, but it refers to the woman, the old people, the aunt and uncle, the sister who is 17, and but the characters, and a motorcycle gang, no less, who only comes into Perfect Lives at the very end of the park.
You had said that on those cards or on that document that you had, it says a 7-part
Yeah,
opera.
it already said that. And
So
yes.
your pitch to me, Carlotta, was this guy is going to make an opera for television. It was like a challenge. And I was like, well, not without me, he's not going to make an opera.
Oh my.
So I would really, I think we're kind of winding down here, but I think you pick up with Peter and Blue and maybe Mimi and Carlotta about the early days, but certainly Peter and Blue. And I don't know why Peter must have had to go and do something, but and then I think it's fantastic that you're going to do a part 2 with all the contemporary, because then you're going to get a real 3D view for your audience.
I mean, the way this is going, this might be its own 7
7-episode podcast. Yeah.
We're gonna have to score it.
I'll be honest. I mean, this has been so fascinating, and hearing so much about Perfect Lives itself and the stuff around it. I mean, any one of you would be glad to have you on as a guest and just talk to you and find out everything that you've done and everything that you feel. So you're all welcome to come back on again.
Thank you so
Together
much.
or separately?
Thank you.
Part of the fun of running that email chain has been just finding out just like how much all of you guys have done. Like there's it's like a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There's like so much stuff.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
We are all famous in a certain sense.
Without Mimi,
That's a Bob Ashley statement if I ever heard one.
without Mimi, there wouldn't be a whole bunch of contemporary composers. They would be in a much
A lot in the kitchen. Never mind. Let's not go there.
But they may not even have origins, right?
Yes.
Carlotta, where are you?
Okay. Where are you, Carlotta? Are you out in Patchogue?
I'm in Blue Point, which is pretty close to Patchogue.
Long Island.
Because Jamie was always he said he would go out to Patchogue to get to his boat.
That's where it used to be. This is sort of around the corner.
Okay.
Now it's a little cottage.
A little cottage. Okay.
And the light is always different.
All
Well,
right.
I thought Mimi was in Galesburg.
Yeah.
See, I'm right here in Galesburg.
It really does. It looks like Galesburg.
It does. It's Standish Park.
And I'm with John Cage.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm at a sushi restaurant.
Okay.
No, I'm with my own desktop. No, I'm in another artwork of mine. Oh no, I'm in another art. Oh no, I'm with Blue.
Dean, you have to show that again.
I'm just proving it's not a Zoom backdrop. Here.
And I'm
Nice.
Oh yeah.
You have a real backdrop. So does Carlotta.
I'm in my studio.
Here's another one for you, Carlotta.
Oh, my.
I'm in the extra bedroom in our country place. Now, Mimi and John were both there for my wedding.
Wedding, yeah.
Formerly your parents' country place, or was it
Right, well,
Yvette's parents' country?
I
Yvette's
met-
parents.
Who's the guy from Mad Magazine I met there?
Yep.
Which guy?
Paul Peter Porges is my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He looks exactly like him, Alfred Newman, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, he looks maybe like Alfred E. Newman?
Yeah. You know who else looks like this is stupid. You know who else looks like Alfred E. Newman? Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah. Oh,
He does. I was watching a debate. I said, "What does this guy look like? Who does this guy look like?"
He's going to be Biden's Secretary of Health and Human Welfare.
I'll take it. Okay.
Yep.
Where do I sign up?
Welcome. Or defense, maybe.
I got a thing up in the room it says Alfred E. Newman for president, want me worry. So I guess it's like better than that outcome.
Okay.
True, true. I would rather have Alfred E. Newman for president right now, for sure.
I would rather have a dead fish for president than what we've got, but
Yeah.
Where's Alfred E. Newman on the chain, right? Because like the president dies, it's the vice president. The vice president dies, it's the Speaker of the House.
Right.
And then,
The House dies, and it's Alfred E. Newman, I think.
yeah,
my mother-in-law, who is 100 years old, says on a regular basis, "Where is Lee Harvey Oswald now that we
when you need them, right?
My
100 years old?"
Yeah, she's like back in my day, somebody would have taken care of this by now.
Oh, God.
Like 93, you know, she's like, I can say anything I want. I'm 93. What are they going to do to me?
All right, guys, I got to go.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
All right. I guess this is
so much.
Great to see all, everyone.
Thanks so
You
much.
look good too.
Thank
All right,
you
guys.
all. Thank you.
Everybody
Very
look
nice
like
to be
they-
together.
Memories.
Love you all. Great to see you.
Bye,
Good week,
Paul.
guys.
Say hi to Vivette.
I will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Here.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
It was our pleasure.
This has been so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
For me too. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, it's just us now.
Wow, easy. I mean, not that I thought it was going to be hard. It's just like we never had that many people on a single episode before.
Oh yeah. This one definitely. I'm not looking at the different tracks and trying to edit them all together. This is one. Trying to get three tracks.
Never seen before.
What was that?
More guests than you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
No
It was great.
podcast brings you more guests than the essential
Yeah.
Anomaly
it easier.
questionable movies.
It makes it easy. You said 5 things. I said 1, so 6
Mm-hmm.
between us, and then the rest was.
You just let them go. Yeah, they seem really excited to see each other. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm really glad to have been part of that, and to have been, not exactly a fly on the wall, but close enough, right? So, it was really great to be part of that. I feel I don't know what to say. I was glad that it happened, and I was glad that that I would say that we could make it happen, that we could help make it happen.
They all seemed really, that was, and that was, you could just tell, like, hearing them talk, like they really loved that guy.
Yeah. It felt like he was there. They all. I was a couple of things I was going to say, and like, no, I don't want to interject. I don't, but I kept imagining, like, okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to ask? And I was like, wait, okay, they're calling him Bob or Robert. I'm like, what do I say? Like, Mr. Ashley?
Yeah, I avoided it because I was like, it just feels weird to me calling him Bob.
Yeah, I can't do that. So like Robert Ashley, but that's like sounds a little.
It's like calling Hegel George, right? like it just feels weird. But yeah, so I guess like that was part 1. We're gonna be I don't know if we're gonna do like a mini separate episode with the conversation once we get Blue Jean on the phone. We gotta figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like this, by the time people are listening to this, we'll have probably some of it in the can already, so we can figure out how to piece this out, because it's probably going to, I guess this won't really take that long to edit, because there's not really any dead space. There's just a lot of, once everybody.
No, not at all.
Everybody was just like.
If anything, there's overlapping space. And I really do hope that, so I mean, it was great to do it. Heck, do it again. Anybody want to do it? But I really hope actually that some or all of them come back on individually. I mean, when we talked to John a few weeks ago to help set this all up, I regret not having hit record, because instead of a 5-minute conversation, it turned out into a 1-hour episode that we could have recorded and published. So we'll have to have John on.
And John's coming back on with the residents.
Oh, that's right.
Or, well, the representative of the residents. The residents obviously don't speak to the press directly, but exciting. We're breaking off a little piece of the remix here. John Sanborn with a representative of the Cryptic Corporation coming on to the podcast soon. So,
yeah.
so that's gonna be a fun thing to look forward to. We're gonna have, depending on how this ends up getting released, we're gonna have David Colma. We're gonna have the people who did the Spanish language version, and we're gonna have the musician Matmas, who also did his own version. Hopefully, we can get them all on the same call on Monday. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is going to be it's going to be a little history nugget.
Yeah. This is a little bit of history. I mean, we're going back to, let's see, this was
and nobody's ever done this before. Like there's been live events where they've all kind of, I don't know. Like when they were talking, it didn't sound like they've ever gotten this many of the people together since it was like on television.
Yeah, and that was 81, I think, right?
Yeah, and I feel kind of honored because, like he mentioned, he gets messages once or twice a month, but I guess we were the only people who weren't like trying to finish graduate school from this. Right. As John was saying that, like, because the way we booked this, kind of like what John Sanborn was saying earlier in the interview was, if Robert Ashley wanted something, he'd ask for it. And so I did not know John Sanborn or literally any of these. Ron and I did not know any of these people. I had one mutual Facebook friend.
Are you allowed to say who it is, or that needs to be kept private?
Well, he was also a guest. It was a John Jost.
Oh,
all the Johns hang out together apparently. So.
Oh, right. Whether there's some have H's, some don't, but they're all.
Yeah, and I found a way to contact him on the internet. It seemed legit, and I just sent a message, and I was like, hey. I was thinking about, like, what would my dream podcast episodes be? Well, I didn't say, I think I just basically was like, hi, I wrote my undergraduate thesis on this thing, watched it an ungodly number of times. and after he agreed to do it, I told him that I got a C- on the thesis, but I guess he was in by that point.
Yeah.
And
maybe that was even a bit better. Maybe that would have.
Right. But yeah, I think, and then once we got the email chain, like I can't think of another group of people that have known each other for 40 years that are on that good of terms with each other.
And some haven't seen or had contact with each other for years.
Yeah, there was we got to see a lot of about the music, but there was no behind the music element. Like
yeah.
Like they just seem like that's super cool, And we didn't get to find out what was going to happen in season 2. That was I'm kidding.
That's another episode. Yeah, we got
another episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be season 2 once this hits 7 episodes.
And we should repeat the plug. This is available on Amazon on DVD.
And not just on DVD, because so Ron has the paperback that I believe is still in print. If you're going to try to watch this at home, I highly, highly, highly recommend buying that, because being able to read along with it makes it 100 times more intelligible, even if it doesn't make it
if you buy one now, you can get one with with all of Dan's notes in it.
Yeah, and those are the notes that got me the C-.
I've got to wait. I just got to read one thing, and again, I didn't want to interject and
no.
What's going on? But the line that really got me into this, of all things, was 1 G in fogs, 2 G's in eggs allowed. And then on top of that, there's bonus. There's Dan's note on there says G/God ? So I knew I picked the right the right phrase to that's the one I'm latching on to. That's the one that's pulling me into this.
All right, it's the voice of God, this sort of arbitrary voice. But,
do you know that G? Do you know that G is a horse?
I did not know that.
GEE is a horse. It's actually in I am the very model of a modern major general from the Pirates of Penzance. And he's looking for a rhyme for strategy, and he says, "Oh, let me think. Never sat a G. so never rode a horse. So
it's funny. There's one thing we didn't get to that I was kind of hoping to get into, which is the Tourette syndrome thing.
Well, there was I know you were talking about neurotypical stuff to me offline, not on.
Oh yeah, we did talk about that a bit because I feel like this morning when I was watching it, and I mean this, God, I could do an episode just like my interpretation on this stuff, and also while we're hawking products because it's in my hand. Lovely Music, which is run by Mimi, who we were just talking to. They have been repressing a lot of the vinyl that came out around. So this is a repress. This is the rest of the records in the background here are originals, but it sounds really good. It's a nice package. It's reasonably priced. It's got a little insert. And if you like this stuff and you want to support it, and you're a vinyl person, this is a perfect, or a stocking stuffer for like the weird person in your life.
With a big flat stocking. Where can you get that?
somebody with really, really weird feet.
Yeah. Where can you get that? It's in print, you said?
It's in print. I bought it at a record store, so
okay.
It's in distribution. I am sure that if you go through most of the usual music channels online and just look for a new copy, I don't know if this record was repressed, but it probably should be.
I think this is the first time anyone's hawked products on here, and we've now hawked 3. There's the Getting the DVD that's available. Perfect Lives, the libretto that's in print.
Right.
And what is it called? Private Parts is the album that you
Private Parts, which has the park and the backyard, which are the first and last episode. I don't know if this ever got repressed, but this is awesome. This is the audio from the lessons. The video from the lessons hasn't been released, but
nice.
And as you can see, literally everybody or not literally everybody, but like 90% of the people we were just talking to printed right on the front of this record.
Okay, cool.
It's kind of cool.
Well, this is great. Despite having some, trying to figure out some connection things and how do we connect that and audio and dialing.
I thought we were going to have 15 people and it was going to be kind of like my fear, because I was like anxious going into this because I was all excited and stuff, and all that. And I thought we were going to have 15 people and it was going to become avant-garde just because it was going to be so garbled from people talking over each other, or like a fight was going to break out or something, or like.
And the sound will get distorted. If 2 people are talking, one will dominate, but the other one you can barely hear, but it'll cause a distortion for the sound, a bit of a distortion in the background and a little bit of distortion in the main voice. By the way, I kept this all in gallery view, not speaker view, because sometimes, it was great to have everyone together. So it was like having.
Yeah, I did gallery view too, because it just like felt more like an event, and everybody responded to stuff.
And then for practical reasons, is what happens is if there's a little bit of sound will get picked up, and suddenly, even though there's one person talking, wherever that sound came up, it'll switch to that person as the speaker, even though they're just sitting there doing nothing and they just tapped on a table or something or coughed. So but it was having everyone on there on the screen at the same time, and sometime and talking together. Everyone was in the room together, and especially now we've all been that way, right? I would go down to your place once a week, and we'd watch a movie together and we'd record together. For the last 6 months we've been doing that virtually. I've been in my room, you've been in your room, and we've both been on the Zoom room together. So now.
And this is our first video episode too, which is why I did up the set, and it's just like fun having visual props behind you. Like I think the other people on the call were doing that too. It's just like grab an object randomly as like a visual gag or something during a conversation. And I kind of curated the Robert Ashley stuff I have minus one record. And I put, it's hard to tell on the video here, but that's a photograph I took in Portland, Oregon, of a wooden board with a giant ampersand painted on it on fire.
Oh, nice.
I felt was appropriate because of how many times he says, and.
I loved his voice. It was great.
Oh, it's so good, yeah.
It was great. I know Mimi had said that he doesn't, people talk about speaking, people talk about singing, and he didn't draw a distinction between them. And that's very much, what I was hearing. When I'm listening to well, it's with people talking, but especially with music. So, you know, I like musicals and also just listening to songs, but I'll miss at least a third of the words, if not half. And this was no different. But what I did get was his voice and the intonation and the beats. And in fact, at one point I was thinking, yeah, it's kind of like a beat poet, you know, the 1981 version of a beat poet. But it was very much that he was talk singing. It was the same thing. And even though I was missing words at times, that was fine because I was still getting the feel for it. And it would also help me sometimes get and understand the words. So
yeah, I think that's like a huge, like, I think the first time I looked at it, before I had a better understanding of what was going on and I had kind of a mental geography of what is in the piece and everything, what stood out to me and kind of blew me away was that even not understanding it, when I went out into the world the next day, people talking sounded different in this like weird fundamental way. And I thought, you know, that's always been like a thing that for me is the gold standard of art is like, does something fundamental look very different or sound very different or you know, taste very different in the case of food or something afterwards? And I got that with this. And also, I mean, it just sort of, yeah, it's just interesting because like people who've been listening to this podcast for a while have probably figured out that like I do not necessarily, I do not have the best control over the volume, or not the volume, but the quantity of speech which comes out of me. And so just sort of the whole thing with involuntary speech and like the elements of the piece where he's coming to terms with these sort of experiences of involuntary speech, I think spoke to me a lot.
Yeah, you were when I was texting you about it this morning, and I was saying I forget what I said exactly, and you were responding like with pages and pages of text to me with the analysis of it and talking about that and now your latest appreciation of it.
Well, yeah, because it seems to mean something different every time there's just so many little things there, and it's like it feels like they're all a whole, but they're not linear, you know. They don't want you to chew off the whole thing at once.
Yeah. Do you remember what my response was to your analysis?
9/11 to what? Like
the text analysis that the running text analysis that you gave me.
Oh yeah, that was
yeah. You're like sending all that, and my response was 1G and fogs.
I mean, it's the kind of thing you could teach like a semester college course on, but yeah. So should anything you want to add, or should we?
No, just looking forward to next episode, part 2. At least the next one that we'll be recording is. Can you describe just a couple of sentences what it's going to be?
When I sent the message to John Sanborn initially, I was not really expecting a response. Just because he didn't have any idea who I was. So I was basically just sort of, I sent the thing and I was like, whoa, we're getting John Sanborn on the podcast. And then he was like, oh, let's bring everybody. And everybody, even in the initial thing, included the people that were doing this new production of it, you know, Vitas Perfectus too. And then Mimi brought up Montmas a little while ago, which was good because I forgot that he'd done a version of it. And so we're going to do, and this was kind of like a precondition of doing the first one. And I thought it sounded pretty fun, but we're going to do the next generation, like Star Trek style, Degrassi style. It's going to be long. There's going to be excitement and intrigue. And we're going to go into, we're just going to go into what happens to a piece like this that where so much of it is fundamentally tied to recorded images and audio. How does interpretation happen, and just what happens to it as a live performance piece or as a set of instructions for performance? I think that should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's funny that you said precondition, and when you first said that, I was like, no, don't say that. And then my next thought was like, oh wow, that's great, because it means that the first generation insists and cares for the second generation, right?
Yeah. I thought it was really, I thought it was, I thought it was really
Fun,
sweet
we need
how
10
Mimi
months.
was like, they need their own episode, and I'm excited because we got like,
Yeah.
we just got like endless high quality guests, and they're fighting us to be here. They're not fighting us. They're fighting tooth and nail to get on here, and I guess this is
Yeah. I don't know if we can, can we hold back the gates?
Yeah,
We're pummeling it and trying to break through, and we're like, we can only handle so much of the podcast at once. So
this whole guest experiment has been, I've just been like it's gone farther than I was willing to hope it would. So that's good.
Remember the days when we used to sit around, long time ago, when we used to sit around, watch a movie and talk about it and go off and
we did that last week. We did the Batman movie.
And most of them have been they're almost all related to movies, and in this case, well, I won't say a TV show. TV show doesn't quite capture it, but that's.
I mean, it has commercial breaks. It's 20
Yeah.
It's a television program.
Right. Only thing missing is an episode of Super Friends.
That's true. Maybe after the next generation, we should do like a Super Friends segment.
Yeah. Right. Introduce them to the Super Friends. They maybe
We'll just send
friends are.
Hi, Montmas. You do not know me, but I need you to watch an episode of the Super Friends by Monday, so that you can talk.
or watch it with us.
Right.
And give live commentary. Cool. All right. Well, shall we?
Yeah, I'm getting kind of hungry, but yeah, that was
a lot of fun. Cool.
That was pretty sweet.
Well, so you start.
Until next time, this is Dan,
and this is Ron,
and this has been Anomaly Questionable Movies, the special Perfect Lives episode part 1.
The special Perfect Lives episode part 1.
Right. They're all going to be perfect from now on.
Yeah. Well, take care, everyone.
Take care.